Welcome to Faith, Purpose, and Freedom Podcast, the home for every single person, no matter where you've been, what you've done, or where you come from. I'm your host, Kayla Roth, and this is a place where we build unity, love, and real community. Here we grow together, encourage one another, and share real stories that lead us back to the cross and back to who God created us to be. You have gifts, you have purpose, and you belong here. Today, we're diving into one of the most misunderstood topics in the personal development world: mindset and manifesting. We just finished up our identity series, so I'm really excited to move into mindset and manifesting. Next month, we will move into action. We will be putting everything that we have learned through the identity series, the mindset and manifesting, into action. So people throw mindset and manifesting around constantly, but very few people actually understand what they mean, how they work, or why they actually matter. Mindset is not just positive thinking. It's not motivational quotes. It's not pretending everything is just fine. It is the internal operating system of our brains. The beliefs, the patterns, the emotional responses, and subconscious programs that shape how we see the world and how we respond to it. Manifesting is not magic, it's not wishful thinking. Manifesting is the natural outcome of our mindset, it is the fruit of your internal world. You manifest what you repeatedly think, believe, expect, and emotionally rehearse. Manifesting is simply your brain, your nervous system, your habits, and your spiritual alignment producing the results of what you've been practicing internally. Let that sink in for a minute. What have you been practicing internally? What is going on internally within yourself? And this is manifesting. We have the ability to manifest negative or positive into our lives, and we have to take that in. We have to recognize it, but we also have to be willing to change that mindset. Our mindset is shaped before we ever even realize it. It begins in the developmental years of our lives. So, the first 7 years of life, when our brain is in a highly absorbent state called theta. In those years, you're not thinking critically, you're downloading. You're absorbing the emotional tone of your home, the beliefs of your caregivers, the safety or instability of your environment, and the messages spoken over you. If you grew up in complete chaos, everything was constantly in turmoil, your brain learned chaos and turmoil. If you grew up in fear, your brain learned fear. If you grew up in criticism, your brain learned self criticism. If you grew up in a world where you were constantly being criticized and you've seen others being criticized, you are constantly going to criticize yourself. It is so true that we are our own worst critics, and oftentimes that comes from childhood. If you grew up in emotional neglect, your brain learned to silence your needs. Your brain learned that your needs did not matter. These early experiences shape neural pathways that become your automatic thoughts, your emotional triggers, your relationship patterns, and even your sense of identity. I often tell people through ministry whenever they come to me and, they're telling me like their home is just chaos and, there's constant turmoil. I can't help but to go to our youth. Like if there's children living in that environment, they are going to believe later in life that they have to settle for that, especially when someone comes to me and they're having relationship issues. I'm here to tell you the reality of it is if your children are watching your relationship issues, they are going to grow up and believe that that is what a relationship is. Kids will grow up to believe if they see parents in an abusive situation, they're going to grow up and think that love is abuse, so they think it's normal. So I often say, would you want your son or daughter to settle for this? Would you want them to think that this was okay? Because if not, then you need to realize it's not okay for yourself, because you are teaching your children that it is okay if you're in that situation. And I'm not saying, if you and your husband are fighting all the time, that you need to just run out the door and leave. I'm saying fix it. Fix it. Look internally, see what needs fixed, and then also externally work together and fix it. If it can't be fixed, then it's probably time to make different arrangements, because children are suffering. Our youth are struggling in this world, and we see more and more toxicity coming. Well, why do you think that toxic behavior is coming? Everybody is so quick to point out our youth and I mean, say derogatory things, but the bottom line is they only know what they're taught. Us as adults, we only know what we're taught, but it's time that we quit blaming our parents. It's time we quit blaming the grandparents. It's time we quit blaming generations and calling it generational curses. Although I believe that we are generational curse breakers, what I'm here to tell you, it's time to break the curse. It's time to break those generational barriers that have held us back for so long. It's time to break through them. So, the bottom line is, this is why so many people struggle with addictions, mental health challenges, anxiety, depression, and emotional dysregulation. These aren't random issues, guys. They are responses to unmet needs, unresolved pain, and unhealed experiences. Addiction is often an attempt to regulate a dysregulated nervous system. Anxiety is often the brain stuck in survival mode. Depression is often the brain shutting down after years of overwhelm. And spiritual warfare plays a role too, because the enemy always attacks our identity, our truth, and emotional stability. The flesh pulls us towards fear, impulse, and survival. The spirit pulls us towards truth, peace, and renewal. Your mindset sits right in the middle of the battle, but you get to take control. You get to make a difference. It is up to you. I tell my children every single day, the enemy can only work through human agreement. God can only work through human agreement. It is up to us to decide who we're going to partner with. You partnering with the enemy, or are you partnering with God? It's up to us. There are consequences for our actions. Every action has a reaction, right? So it is up to us if that reaction is going to be good or negative. And yes, no, we shouldn't really react. We should respond. But at the end of the day, people are going to respond to our actions, behaviors, how we treat them. If we are treating people bad, we are treating them negatively, they're probably going to give us the same in return, and we're going to be offended, and then the chaos continues. If we're constantly acting in love, if we're constantly loving people, if we're treating every single individual as they are priceless, because everyone is priceless, we're going to see a change. We're going to see love. We're going to see unity. It's up to us. We can change this. So, when our mindset is shaped by trauma, fear, negativity, or instability, you begin to manifest from that place. You manifest what you expect. You manifest what you rehearse. You manifest what you believe. If you constantly think negative thoughts, your brain becomes wired for negativity. If you constantly expect bad things, your nervous system prepares you for danger, prepares you for negativity, it prepares you for everything bad that can possibly happen. If you constantly speak fear, your identity aligns with fear. And now, without realizing it, you begin manifesting negative outcomes before they've ever even happened. Not because you're cursed, not because you're unlucky, but because your internal world is producing what it has been trained to expect. You see, guys, most of my life, this is where I was stuck. I always expected bad things. I actually, at one point in my life, would say, well, if I expect the bad things and something good happens, then I've lost nothing. I was stuck there. I believed that, wholeheartedly believed it. It took work. Anyone who knew Kayla 10 years ago would not tell you that I am the woman I am today. I have had to sit in a prayer closet. I have had to cry out to God. And today I'm going to share something. Before we move forward, I'm going to share something huge because I get the argument often. How do you know prayer works? I pray, I pray, I pray, and nothing ever happens. Well, let me tell you. I'm going to tell you how I know. Because at one point in my life, my world was turned upside down. My son lost his best friend. It was awful. It was god awful. And a bunch of kids entered my life that were living my identical teenage life, that were living in survival, that were living with pain, were living with the abandonment, that were living with hurt. And I finally realized I searched the world for answers. And as my son was falling apart and he was chasing worldly things and I couldn't fix it, I was chasing him down. I was hurting. I was broken. I was lost. I was confused. I was begging sheriffs for help. I was begging school officials for help. I was begging counselors for help. I sat in the probation office begging them for help. And they told me there was nothing they could do because he hadn't gotten in any legal trouble. They actually told me I couldn't even press unruly charges on my son. There were so many things. I witnessed corruption. Later found out that my son was doing things that I couldn't even believe. And the corruption was there and evident, and people who held power were controlling this. And those same people, I was begging for help and they wouldn't do anything. Suddenly, I hit my knees. I can remember every time a black and yellow sheriff car drove past my house, saying, God, don't let it be. Don't let them stop here and tell me that my son is dead. Let him be okay. God, where I can't be, I know you can be. I can't be all places, but you can. You keep him safe. You protect him. One night, I got a call, and my son had been in an accident. He was okay, but I was mad. I was so angry, and I just remember my ex-husband came, and we rushed over. My ex-husband drove tow truck at the time, and so we rushed over there, and I jumped out of that tow truck, and I'm mad. And the sheriff tells my ex-husband, "You need to get her under control," and he was like, "Why you think we're divorced? Couldn't control her." So anyway, we still laugh about it, and I was so mad, and all of a sudden I stopped dead in my tracks. And I don't think anybody even knew what to think. I didn't even know what to think because what I heard was, but Kayla, he is alive. And I was like, God, you kept him safe. That night, my son came home and we still had a roller coaster ride. But for once, I listened. For once, I led out of love. I, I listened to his every word. And he told me everything he had been doing, and I did not want to hear some of it, but I heard it. I didn't judge. I didn't offer judgment. I listened. I started protecting. I started standing in the face of the enemy, and I was not willing. I was not letting that enemy have my son. I protected him, and I would do it a billion times over because today, my friends, my son is a father. He's doing amazing. He met an amazing woman, and over the past 2.5 years, I've watched them be each other's strength. And today, I have a beautiful grandson. God listens to your prayers, sometimes not in the way that we think, but that's because God still has some work to do on that other person. I promise you, what I realized was my own brokenness led into my children, and I'm here, I'll admit it. I always made sure they had food on the table. I always made sure they had clothes on their backs. I always loved them, but they needed me to listen. People say, don't be your children's friend. I disagree. Be their best friend. Be their parent, but be their best friend. Make sure your kids know that if they can go talk to their buddy about it, they can come talk to you about it. And I'm telling you, you're gonna find a kid that is willing to open up to you and tell you everything. You're going to find your kids saying, I need time to vent, and they're going to vent to you. But if they're venting to you in a closed space and they're getting all those emotions and feelings out, and then you go back and talk about it, at least they're not chasing the world to get rid of that pain. Promise. So, back to mindset. This is where neuroplasticity becomes one of the most powerful gifts. When I learned neuroplasticity, I learned to rewire my own brain. And I was like, oh my goodness, God has given us neuroplasticity as one of the most powerful gifts. It's the brain's ability to change, grow, rewire, and heal. It means your mindset is not fixed, your patterns are not permanent, your trauma is not your identity. Your trauma is not your identity. Your choices are not your identity. Your mistakes are not your identity. Your past is not your future. Science shows that repeated thoughts create new neural pathways. Scripture teaches us that repeated truth renews the mind. When science and scripture meet, transformation becomes possible. Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's not a metaphor, it is a neurological reality. You can literally rewire your brain through repetition, truth, compassion, gratitude, courage, and spirit-led alignment. This is exactly where my new book, Awaken the Light Within, it's going, and it's about awakening what is already within us. It's about awakening the part of you that has been buried under fear, trauma, negativity, and survival. It's about lifting the weight off of your identity so that you can rise into the version of yourself that God had already designed for you to be. It's about understanding how your brain works, your spirit works, how your emotions work, how your mindset shapes your entire life, how everything in the world is interconnected, and how nothing matters but love. And God is love. You are love. We are as Jesus is. And if we are as Jesus is, and Jesus said we have the same authority he has, and that we will do greater works than him, wow. That's who we are. That's our identity. So let's rise up. Let's live in it. My new book is about giving you the tools to change your mindset, to manifest the good things, and not through hype, but through truly healing. Let's talk about something that most people never address. How people who are wildly successful financially, professionally, socially, often still end up miserable, lost, broken, and empty. Guys, through coaching, I have found so many individuals where everybody is like looking out their window, like, and looking through this lens of that's the life I want to live. I wish I had that life. They have the fancy car, the beautiful home, they have a beautiful wife, or they have a amazing husband. And people think that these people are genuinely happy. Many of them are, but many of them are not. And how does that happen? It happens because success does not heal the nervous system. Achievement does not heal childhood wounds. It coats them for a moment. Money does not rewire trauma. Money might lead us into this euphoria for a moment, but not true happiness and freedom. Fame does not regulate our emotional system. You can build an empire, an complete empire, and still feel like a child inside. You can achieve everything you ever wanted and dreamed of and still feel unsafe, unseen, or unloved. When something inside you is shaken, when your identity is unstable, when your emotional wounds are unhealed, you are not living at the vibration of peace, love, unity, and truth. You're living at the vibration of fear, scarcity, and survival. And that vibration shapes your mindset, your relationships, your decisions, and even your manifestations. People manifest negativity because negativity is all they think. They manifest fear because fear is all that they even expect. They manifest chaos because chaos is all they've ever known. They manifest disappointment because disappointment is what their brain rehearses. Manifesting is not mystical. It is neurological, emotional, and spiritual alignment. You manifest what your brain believes is true. You manifest what your nervous system feels is familiar. You manifest what your spirit agrees with. And if your internal world is shaped by fear, trauma, or negativity, your external world will forever reflect it. So, what does manifesting actually mean? Manifesting is the process of bringing into reality what you repeatedly think, feel, believe, and expect. It is the outcome of your mindset. It is the fruit of your internal world. It is the reflection of your identity. Manifesting is not magic, it is alignment, guys. When your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, habits, and spiritual posture aligns with truth, you manifest truth. When they align with fear, you manifest fear. When they align with scarcity, you manifest scarcity. When they align with God's promises, you manifest God's promises. Manifesting is simply the brain, the body, and the spirit producing what they have been trained to expect. Let that sink in today. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to give you a challenge for the next 7 days until next Monday when we release a new. So, a set of practices that are going to help you begin renewing your mind, shifting your internal world, and breaking the patterns that have been shaping your life without your permission. This is some of what I do in my coaching and how I help people. So, science shows that when you research something yourself, when you look it up, find the answers, when you learn it with your own eyes, it sinks deeper into your brain. It becomes embodied, it becomes yours. And I learned that for myself. Whenever you are just getting those aha moments because you're researching it and you're getting it, it becomes yours. So this week, I want you to become a student of your own transformation. First, I want you to research what scripture says about renewing the mind. Look up Romans 12:2, Ephesians 4:23, and Colossians 3:10. Read them slowly. Let them speak to you. These verses are not metaphors. They are instructions for neuroplasticity. They're God's way of saying your mind can change, your patterns can change, your identity can change. You're not stuck. We've been in an identity series for the last month. And I want you to remember this truth. As Jesus is, so are you in this world. You carry his nature, you carry his spirit, you carry his authority, you carry his identity, and you are not broken. You are becoming, you are awakening. We will come back to these next week. So again, Romans 12:2, Ephesians 4:23, and Colossians 3:10. And what I want you to look up is who wrote it, why was it written, what was happening during that time that it was written, and take all of that in. Look up the actual verse, read the verse, and then even research. Like, what does this verse mean? Any words you don't understand, look up what those words mean. I go deep into it and really just let it rest within you and start writing it. And then I want you to think of any negative emotions, negative thought patterns. I want you to write all these down. Things you might think about yourself. Like, I want you to get into the worst, most like negative mood that you might be in. When something's not going right for you, what do you say about yourself? How do you say it? How do you talk about yourself? I want you to write it all down. I want you to go back to these verses. Romans 12:2, Ephesians 4:23, and Colossians 3:10. I want you to now turn this into God's truth. And if you're struggling with doing that, that's fine. I want you to type into ChatGPT or whatever AI you enjoy and say, these are my negative thought patterns. Can you help me change these to God's truth? So if something I hear people say often, and I used to say all the time about myself, is I'm just stupid. I'm not stupid. I'm smart. I'm learning. I'm growing. I will make mistakes, but every mistake I make, what can I learn and how can I grow? I am learning and growing. I am God's creation. Turn it into God's truth. And so in the future, when something happens, you'll go, ha, well, I made a mistake, but I can learn something and I can grow from it. And that's what truly matters. It's not about the mistakes we make in life. It's about what we learn, how we grow, and what we do with it that really matters. Next, I want you to explore your passion. What is something you could talk about without ever even thinking about it? What is a topic that lights you up, that flows out of you naturally? If you are sitting in a room and you hear somebody talking about this, like you could just, bam, be into that conversation real quick. Like you got all the things. Something that feels like oxygen to your soul. Now ask yourself why. What in your life led you to be passionate about this area? Because passion is never random. It's always connected to your story, your pain, your healing, and your calling. Passion is often the place where God turns what the enemy meant for evil into your purpose. For me, I'm passionate about helping people. I'm passionate about loving people right where they're at. I'm passionate about love and unity. I grew up in a life of chaos. My father was not involved. My mom struggled most of her life. My mom's family was always fighting, and my mom's family like hated my father. Therefore, I was always treated like the black sheep of the family. It was tough. I grew up in a tough situation. Eventually, I found myself, with a group of people who I always loved, even though they struggled, and I seen their struggles, and I was always there for them. And I was always that person. I still have childhood friends that come to me, and I am so thankful that they can, and I'm thankful that they know that I love them and I'm here, and I want nothing but for everybody to succeed. And I was always judged for that. I was judged by what others were doing just because I was kind to that person. And so for me, I can't stand that in the world. I can remember my children going to school and like them being told they couldn't be friends with one person because that kid and this other kid's grandparents didn't get along. And I'm like, get over yourselves. Suck it up, buttercup. Get over yourselves. Your generational junk doesn't lead on down to here. Like, let's not. And I am passionate about being generational curse breakers. I actually told my mom one day, 50 Cent always said, I'm going to get rich or die trying. And I said, I'm going to save the world or I'm going to die trying. That's my passion. About to save the world or I'll die trying. Amen. And I don't plan on dying. Ooh, ooh. So let's talk about renewing the mind in a practical way. I want you to journal every day this week. Not long entries, just honest ones. Write down those thoughts that show up, write down the emotions that rise, write down the beliefs that surface, and then use a simple neurolinguistic programming reframing technique. So, as a neurolinguistic programmer, this is something huge I use with my clients because I want to see people succeed. I want to see them reframe their mind. This is something that worked for me. When you really take those negative, I even use it with my children, in ministry, all of it, because when you take a negative thought, you turn it around to God's truth, it really helps. So you're going to identify the thought. You're going to call out the thought. You're going to challenge the meaning of it. And then you're going to replace it with truth. So for example, if you're thinking, I'm not enough, you can turn that into, I am equipped, empowered, and chosen. I always fail. This would become, I'm learning, growing, and rising. No one supports me. Well, this turns into, God is with me and he is sending me the right people. This is how you begin overcoming the trauma part, because trauma creates meaning. And meaning creates mindset. Trauma tells you what to expect. Trauma tells you who you are. Trauma tells you what is safe and what isn't. It tells you what is and isn't possible. But God is trying to turn what the enemy meant for evil into your good. The problem is we get stuck in human emotions instead of God's truth. We get stuck in fear instead of faith. We get stuck in survival instead of renewal. I want to say something that may challenge you. When someone hurts you, betrays you, abandons you, or wounds you, it is because something inside of them is broken. It is because they're not living at peace. It's because they're hurting. It's because they're lost. It's because the enemy can only work through humans. This doesn't excuse what they did. It does not minimize the pain. It does not justify the betrayal, but it helps you understand that their actions had more to do with what was happening inside of them than what was wrong with you. Hurt people. Unhealed people protect and project. Unstable people shake foundations. People who are not living at the vibration of peace, love, unity, and truth will always manifest chaos, not because they want to, but because it is all they know. Unhealed people try to protect from a place of unhealing, from a place of hurt. And that protection often projects hurt and pain, and they just don't realize what they're doing. Oftentimes, hurt people hurt people. Now, healed people will also protect, but they're protecting from a place of love. They're protecting from a place of truth. They're protecting from a place of healing. It's different. This week, I want you to practice seeing the deeper story. If something or someone triggers you, pause for a moment and ask, what must be happening inside of them for them to act this way? This is empathy. This is emotional intelligence, and it's spiritual maturity. This is how you stop internalizing other people's brokenness. And this is where we're heading next week, into forgiveness, reconciliation, and peace. Because once you understand mindset, manifesting, trauma, identity, and emotional patterns, the next step is learning how to release what has been weighing down your spirit. If mindset and manifesting are the fruit, then the battle between the flesh and the spirit is the root. Next week, we're going to expose the internal war that shapes your thoughts, your emotions, your identity, and your manifestations. We're going to talk about old self versus the new self, the trauma formed identity versus the spirit formed identity, and how spiritual warfare influences your mindset more than you realize. We're going to talk about why some people heal quickly and others stay stuck, why some people rise and others collapse, and how the spirit empowers you to overcome the patterns your flesh has created. Next week, we're going to dive deep into how forgiveness rewires the brain, reconciliation restores identity, Peace regulates the nervous system and how God heals the parts of you that have been carrying pain for far too long. Your challenge this week is simple but powerful. Research the scripture on renewing the mind. Explore your passion in its roots. Journal daily, just a few minutes each day. When there's actually a science that whenever it goes from your brain through your hand onto the paper, you're getting it out there. Okay? Use the NLP reframing. Practice empathy towards yourself and others, and begin noticing the deeper story behind people's behaviors, even your own. This is how you begin shifting your mindset. This is how you begin manifesting truth. This is how you begin awakening the light within you. Next week, we go deeper. If any of you are diving into this and you just really want to reach out and set some goals for yourself, level up in your personal and professional life, if this is really resonating with you, I encourage you go to www.faithpurposefreedom.com. And on that first page, you're going to go ahead and click the button and set up a gifted session. I offer a free 60-minute gifted session, and we will dive deep. We will chat, we will talk, we will dive deep. We'll dig out some of those issues and let's see what is available to you. Let's open doors for you. Let's work on that inner healing for you because you matter, you're worth it, and you deserve it. Let's awaken that light that is deep within you. Whether you're a leader, whether you're just starting in your healing process, this table is for everyone. Faith, Purpose, and Freedom was built as a foundation for love and unity for every single person, no matter where you're at, where you've been, where you're from, what you've done. This table is for you. Thank you so much for joining me today on Faith, Purpose, and Freedom. Remember, you have a place at this table. Your story matters, your gifts matter, and the world needs what God has placed inside of you. If this podcast has blessed you and you feel led to support the mission, you can partner with us through the link in the description. Your giving helps me share more stories, reach more people, and make space for those who need hope. It also helps me offer some free coaching to those who just maybe aren't financially able to get there yet. Keep walking in who He created you to be. Keep choosing unity and keep sharing hope everywhere you go. I'll see you in the next episode. God bless you all. I love you all.